Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel again. It's been some time since we haven't seen each other, but here we go once more with all the power. So let's start. Well, I think today's topic is really interesting and also pivotal to me. As you may know, I am a pre-service teacher. Therefore, what I am going to be talking about is about education. So education is a social, political, emotional, and even economical issue that has to do a lot with controversy, I personally think, because reflect about the following question. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you're exposed to this common but transcendental word? What do you think when you hear the word education? Well, most of people might think about concepts like learning, knowledge, schools, teachers, etc. Yeah, that's pretty common, right? But have you ever thought of education as a chastisement? Listen carefully to the next example. Imagine a mother decides to ground her son because he has been having quite bad behaviors in terms of disobeying and disrespecting her. Consequently, the child neither can go out to play with his friends nor watch TV. So the mother just tells him get to study because he's very angry. Well, the child may feel very upset out of this situation because obviously he cannot do the things he most likes to do. So forcing him to study when he feels that kind of emotions might not result in a good way, you might see. Even he may hate to study due to he always has to do it when he is grounded. And that situation is not beneficial for any child. So there you go. People tend to think about education as a chastisement, but the specific subject of this video, which is also my ideal of education, is that education should be taken as a meaningful and beautiful process of exploration, not as a chastisement. The first thing that is necessary to recognize in order to acknowledge education under my perspective is to see and find liberation through being educated. I actually think this process of exploration, which can be personal or guided, leads to a way of liberation and making people happy, since we free ourselves from conceptions, ideas, paradigms that kept us locked up. Hence, the more knowledge we acquire, the more our minds expand and open to the paths of new worlds. So now I would like to refer to one of the most important pedagogues and philosophers of all times. Guess who? Yes, Freire. In 1969, Freire wonderfully reflected, if the understanding is critical or predominantly critical, the action will also be. If the understanding is magical, the action will also be magical, which can be found on page 78 of his book called La Educación como Práctica de la Libertad. The aforementioned has to do with meaningful learning, and that magical moment happens when you learn something new or relate the content with something you already know or like. In the same way, in a review of 2005, Freire also stated that education as a practice of freedom, unlike that which is a practice of domination, implies the denial of abstract man, isolated, loose, detached from the world, as well as the denial of the world as a reality absent from man, which can be found on page 94 of his book Pedagogía del Oprimido. That was deep, right? So it is in the understanding and accomplishing education as a liberation when there is more scope of perceiving men and women as representational and concrete beings that have a connection with the world and everything that surrounds it. What other thing can we learn from this? that an education that truly educates in freedom has to put humans with their feet on the ground, because educating in the clouds and away from the real world would not imply educating in freedom. Secondly, another essential aspect of seeing education as a meaningful process is emotional education. This is vital for children. They have to learn how to handle and moderate their feelings when it comes to expressing one of them, as well as the importance of how they feel when they're learning. In 2011, Vizquerra stated that it is necessary to look for didactic strategies to facilitate that students can discover the pleasure of learning and, by extension, the pleasure of reading. All this is part of the intellectual pleasures, which unfortunately many people cannot discover in their entire lives. Education should play an important role in the development of this pleasure, which can be found on page 63 of his book, La Educación Emocional. Thus, the purpose of education is to enjoy the learning process and feel pleasure and positive emotions by acquiring new knowledge. In this way, it has to be done in a safe, calm, and unstressed environment to have successful learning, On the contrary, learners could lose motivation and efforts to accomplish the procedure. This has to do a lot with affective factors that should be put into practice by teachers in their lessons. Now think about someone that really likes music and he wants to dedicate his life into this, but he's not interested in maths, for example, so he has really bad grades in that subject. This could end in punishment by their parents and comments like, if you don't study and have good grades, you can't play the guitar or piano or whatever he likes to play. That's why it is important to motivate learners and encouraging them to have a love of learning. So this could be something significant, entertaining, and gratifying for them, rather than just do it because they are obliged to do so. And last but not least, the final topic is the importance of education and its social sense. As I said at the beginning of this video, people might have a lot and different opinions about education, and one of them is culturally accept schools as prisons or care centers. In this way, taking into account Foucault's view of discipline and punishment, in a review from Solanilla and Bermejo in 2013, parents actually will keep on having reasons based on ancient paradigms to use education as a punishment. For example, considering that the only thing that matters are grades and not taking into account the learning process that it entails. Because what if a student had some difficulties just at the day of the test? A fight at home, a death of someone they love, whatever difficulties it might be. But the thing is that these are not taken into account. Students are just seen as numbers, so parents ground their children because of their grades. If these situations keep happening and the view or perspective that we as society have on education does not change, education probably will be an unpleasant process. That is why we have to reflect on the actual purpose it has and how we want to accomplish it, in order to stop wrongly seeing education as a chastisement. That is a work that you, me, and all of us have to do after finishing this video. So, giving this to an end, I would like to clearly say that education should liberate people and make them accomplish happiness and pleasure. As I said before, society needs to rethink the role of this important process of acquiring knowledge, skills, beliefs, values, etc. It is a talent that society has to take into account and stop thinking about education as something boring or a punishment. Please stop doing it. Consequently, little by little, people can change misconceptions about this, which is really paramount for our lives. The more we love to learn, the more our minds can explore marvelous things about life in general. So there is no living in no learning. So that was all. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope this makes you deeply reflect about this topic, and see you next time. Bye!